right, looks like we're live. Hi everybody, hope everyone's doing well. I'm outside today for these land drills. It's just a little bit more room. So I hope the audio works out good. I hope everyone can hear me. I hope the lighting's okay. But I need the extra room to, especially for this drill, so that I can show it to you. So hope everyone's doing well and hope everyone's not too bored. Staying inside or not being able to paddle if that's the case. But I'm going to show you some things today that'll get you thinking about your catch and your entry into the water and how to get good body weight on the blade right from the beginning of the stroke. So yesterday, or in the last video, we talked about the 5 most important things that you can think about, the 5 fundamentals that you need to think about for technique. I'll just review them really quickly here. The first is that you want to secure the blade in the water and then pull yourself past the paddle and then push yourself past the paddle at the end of the stroke. That's what moves your board forward. The second thing we talked about was getting good body weight on the blade. Body weight helps the job that your muscles have to do because it can exert some force on the paddle. And then the other thing it does is it takes weight off the board, makes the board sit a little higher in the water, which then allows it to skip across the water more easily with less wetted surface and therefore less resistance to forward movement through the water. The third thing is to use big muscles preferentially over small muscles. The fourth thing was to do as much as you possibly can with positive blade angle. And then the fifth was to keep the board moving as well as you possibly can between strokes. So to accelerate it off the back of the stroke so it carries more speed between strokes. Those are the 5 main things that you're trying to accomplish. So what I thought I would do today is I'd show you a drill that has to do with the entering into the water, gathering water in the face of the blade and holding it there, which is the first step obviously to securing the blade in the water so that you can pull yourself past the paddle. And then the other thing that it pertains to this drill is getting good body weight on the blade right away at the catch. So basically, as soon as the blade is going in the water, it's got your body weight on it. You're not waiting till the middle of the stroke to load your body weight on it if you paddle properly. And this drill should help you feel what that's like and know what position to get in on your board. Remember that drills that you do on land, their purpose is to help you recognize or learn positions that you need to get your body in on the board. And doing them in your warm-up or doing them when you're unable to paddle, visualizing, remembering what it feels like, visualizing what it would then feel like in the board can really help you find those positions when you do get on your board. Okay? So let's look at the front of the stroke, the catch, and we'll talk just briefly about it before I just to set up the drill before I get into the drill. So the first thing is that everyone has heard about reaching. And let's just make one thing clear about reaching. Reaching as far as you possibly can in the air is not a good thing, right? Because if you reach as far as you can in the air with your blade way up off the surface of the water, you can't go into the water even further ahead than that. It's really hard to do that. Inevitably, what you end up doing is pulling your blade back through the water before the blade goes in the water. Okay? So that's not helping you get a good clean catch with lots of body weight on the blade. The other thing is it doesn't really matter how far you're reaching. What matters is the effective reach that you get. And I would say that the effective reach you get is the reach that you have when the blade is buried. The point, where the blade actually gets buried, that's when the stroke becomes effective. And so, for me, my blade is getting buried at a reach something like that, which isn't excessive. And then once it's buried, I've got some positive blade angle when it's buried, and then I'm able to use that buried blade through the entire stroke. So that's much more important than a big long reach in which the blade takes a long time to get buried. And one of the biggest mistakes that people make when they're paddling is that they take too long to get the blade buried. They might have a nice big reach in the air, but by the time the blade is actually buried, the blade is getting really close to their body and it's already vertical. And so they've lost the ability to do things with a positive blade angle. So the drill I'm going to show you is all about being able to get the blade buried quickly with positive blade angle and being able to get body weight on your blade at the beginning of the stroke. And they're two crucial things, and this drill really helps with that. The other big mistake that people make is that they don't put their body in position to get weight on their blade at the beginning of the stroke. And so what they do is, as they start to reach forward with their upper body, so they're rotating forward with their shoulders, they're leaning forward with their upper body. As they do that, they start to sit back with their butt. And it's almost like if I put a chair up behind me, it's almost like they would be sitting, getting ready to sit down in a chair or on a bar stool. And that's a problem. Because what it does is, if you get into this position here, my hips or my butt is perfectly balancing my head and my upper body reaching forward. And so the weight remains centered exactly over my feet. And if the weight is centered exactly over my feet, then it's 100% of my weight is on the board, which means the board's taking in my case, all of my 185 pounds, and it's sitting deep in the water. The whole idea, if you recall from the last video, is to get weight off of the board and onto your paddle. So if you want to get weight onto your paddle immediately, as soon as the blade goes in the water, you don't want to be sitting in a chair like that, okay? And so this drill combats that. It's going to teach you to not sit in the chair and to get your weight forward. The last thing I'll say is that, remember, drills are exaggerations. So you're going to see me get into a position, and you're going to say, "Oh, you never get in that position on a paddleboard. That's too extreme." And to you, I would say you can get in that kind of position. I'll actually post a little video in the comments to this video that shows me getting into that really forward position when I'm paddling. So you can do it. But the second thing is, drills are an exaggeration. So you're putting yourself in a bit of an exaggerated position that's easy to get to on land. And the thinking is that you'll be able to get close to that position, or closer to that position than you otherwise would when you get on your board on the water. Okay, so that's why we're doing this, is to help you, get into a position you can't currently get into on your board. Okay, when you're paddling. So here we go. This drill, the whole purpose of it is to get forward with good weight on your blade at the catch. So what I want you to do is I want you to get ankle flexion. Okay. Just before we get our ankle flexion, just one other thing. If we want to get the blade in the water right away at the beginning of the stroke, one thing that we can do is, instead of paddling with straight legs and bending at the waist a lot to get our blade in the water, we can just bend our legs more. So we can stand in a stance like our normal stance on the board can be, with a little bit more leg bend. If you think about that, if we stand up straight, our hips are up here. If we bend our legs more, our hips stay where my hand was, but our hips were where my hand was. If we bend our legs more, you can see my hips go lower. They go up maybe 3 to 6 inches lower. If my hips are 3 to 6 inches lower, then my paddling side shoulder is 3 to 6 inches lower. If my paddling side shoulder is 3 to 6 inches lower, then my hand is, my paddling side hand. And if my paddling side hand is that much lower, then my blade tip is that much lower too. So it's that much closer to the water and that much closer to getting buried quickly, okay? So I'm a firm believer in having quite a bend in your legs when you're paddling, just in your normal stance. They'll bend more during the stroke, but I don't think it's really effective if you want to use your legs, and using your legs is important, because then we're using big muscles, the biggest muscles that we have available. You don't want to stand with your legs straight. You want to have a leg bend. But to get forward, to get really forward and not be sitting in a chair, to get weight in our blade at the catch, we want to think about our center of mass being slightly in front of our body. Okay, so when we're actually about to enter the water, our center of mass is just a little in front of our body. It's not directly over our feet like it is when we're standing up straight. It's got to be in front of our body, so it feels like we're actually going to topple forward. Okay. And that toppling forward isn't going to happen. You're not going to do a face plant onto the deck of your board, and you're not going to fall into the water, because you have the paddle in your hand, and the paddle's going to save you. So you can be in your leg bent stance, and then you can get forward, and you can get your center mass forward in front of your body, and you can feel like you're going to topple, and that paddle is going to catch you and hold you up. Okay, and it's going to do this exact same thing on the water that it just did for me here on land. Okay, so how do we get our center of mass in front of our body? Well, the best thing that you can do is you can get more ankle flexion, okay? So this is ankle extension when we point our toes, okay? And this is ankle flexion when we bring our toes towards our knees. Okay, so we want to have flexion in our ankles, more than normal. We want to actually try to get, and I hope you can see this in the video, we want to try to get our knees over or in front of our toes. Those of you that have done alpine skiing before, downhill skiing, will know that you put on ski boots and they put you in a position where your knees are over your toes. And you are standing there like this, and they're really uncomfortable, but they're like that for a reason. And the reason is that it keeps the weight of your body over the tips of your skis. And when your weight's over the tips of your skis, that helps you carve your turns better. If you're standing up straight, the weight is on the tails of your skis, and you don't carve your turns as well. Okay, so the boots are putting you in a position to make you ski better. They have a lot of ankle flexion, and the weight is over the tips of your skis, okay? Which means the center of mass when you're skiing, when you're wearing ski boots, is a little bit in front of your body, okay? And you can stay in that position without falling over because you're moving with while you're skiing, and so you don't, do a face plant onto the front of your skis. Well, we're gonna take a page out of Downhill Skiing's book here. We're gonna get into our normal leg bend at our knees, and then we're gonna get a little bit more ankle flexion so that our knees are over our toes. And we're going to keep our hips pressed forward, okay? So think about squeezing your glutes to keep your hips pressed forward, and you're going to stand in that position like this. And right now, I'm a little bit tippy forward, but I'm not that much because I'm standing up nice and straight with my upper body, okay? So that's what's going to keep me from toppling right now while I'm getting ready to do the drill. Okay, so I'm in that position. My weight is definitely over my toes. My heels are still on the ground, but my weight is forward over my toes. And there's a little bit of strain in my lower legs to balance right now. Now all I'm going to do is just start to get a casual rotation, just a comfortable rotation. You can see as soon as I did that, as soon as I started to bring my arms forward, I started to go forward with my body. I started to topple forward. So again, lots of knee flexion. Ankle flexion, knees over your toes. Take your paddle, start to take your stroke comfortable rotation. You're going to feel you toppling forward. Okay, and as you topple forward, the blade goes into the grass or the beach sand or the carpet, wherever you're doing this drill, and it supports your body weight. Okay, so again, you're standing up straight, you get into your bent leg stance. You get a little bit more ankle flexion and get your knees out over your toes. You're standing up straight with your upper body right now, so you don't topple forward, but you start to rotate just like you would on your paddleboard. You start to reach, and as you start to reach, you fall forward. And that's the same thing that's happening on the water, okay? Now the reason it doesn't feel so extreme when you're on your board is when you're on your board, you're constantly moving. You're moving in this, you have this cycle of movement, this rhythm of movement, and your board's moving, which gives you balance. It's like when you ride your bike, if you're standing still on your bike, it's very unstable. But when you start to move, you gain some balance. Well, the same thing, that cyclical movement of paddling and the board moving through the water, you'll actually be in a position that is exactly like what you're going through here, like you're moving through here, but it's part of the whole cyclical movement. And when you're passing through that really unstable position, your paddle is on the way into the water, and so it just goes in the water and supports you, and you never feel like you're going to really topple forward because the blade is taking your body weight. And remember, we want the blade to take our body weight because we want body weight off the board and onto our paddle. And that's going to lift the board up in the water, make it easier for it to move across the water. Okay? So I'm going to do the drill one more time from the side, and you can watch it. I've got my normal leg bend. I get a little bit more ankle flexion to put my knees over my toes. I keep my hips pressed forward by just contracting my glutes and pushing my hips forward a bit. I start my rotation, and as I do, I start to topple forward, and there you can see that I've got my blade entering the water, which would be the grass here, and I've got my body weight on the blade. If you take the blade away from me right now, I fall on my face. Okay? Let me just show you from the other side. So I've got my leg bend. I'm going to actually get a little bit more ankle flexion, get my knees up over my toes. Make sure my hips are pressed forward so I don't sit back in the chair. Hips are pressed forward. Start my rotation. I start to lose my balance forward. The blade catches me and holds my body weight. The interesting thing is that when you do this, you actually see that the angle that the paddle has with the water or the grass or the beach sand or whatever, wherever you're doing this drill, and the angle of your body from your feet is almost the same. It's almost the same angle. And so if you look at it like that, it's almost like you're reaching from your feet rather than reaching from your waist, right? Okay, so just even think about reaching from your feet, and that's going to get you into that unstable position. That unstable position with your center of mass in front of your body guarantees that your blade is going to take your body weight. It also guarantees that the blade is going to get buried quickly, okay? It's going to get buried really quickly, and it's not going to be one of these scenarios where you're paddling and it takes, you enter the water and you take all the way to here before the blade gets buried. And that is one of the most common mistakes that we see when we're doing a video analysis for somebody, is that it just takes far, far too long for them to get the blade buried. Okay? From the front, if you're looking at that from the front, there's a couple of things that you can think about when you're doing this drill to make it appropriate for what you're trying to do on your board. I mean, you're trying to get your body into the same positions that it would be on your board. So this is a real important angle to look at, because sometimes when people are doing this drill, you'll see they do everything right in terms of ankle flexion, pushing their hips forward, getting into that unstable position, but they'll put the blade in the water here, okay? Now what's wrong with that? Well, you can clearly see right now is that the blade is directly in front of my crotch, right? Like it's between my feet. And that's not going to be a position that the blade can be in on the water, right? It's got to be outside of the board, okay? Tucked right up against the rail of the board, but outside the board. If you're on the beach doing this drill, you can just draw a line in the beach sand that represents where the rail of your board would be. And then what you can do is when you start to rotate forward, you can make sure that your blade is going as close to the line as possible, but outside that line. So it's clearly not landing on the board, it's landing in the water, okay? Another common mistake that people make is that in order to get lots of reach in this drill, they get their top arm tucked in. I'll come a little closer to the camera. They get their top arm tucked in like this. And that's probably not the angle that they have their top arm at when they're paddling. Just a quick aside, top arm angle. When you're paddling, you don't want it locked straight. If you go to a gym, so when the gyms open up again and you go in the gym and you get on a pulley machine and you put some weight on it and you try to press down on a pulley machine with a perfectly straight, locked out at the elbow arm, you'll find that you're not very strong, and you'll find that there's a lot of strain on your shoulder while you do it. It's very uncomfortable, and you can feel like you're risking a shoulder injury while you do it. If you just put a little bit of a bend in that top arm, maybe 5 degrees, maybe 10 degrees, suddenly when you push down with the pulley machine, you feel much stronger, and you don't feel like there's any strain in your shoulder. The strain is being absorbed by your arm, okay? So that's the angle, 5 degrees, 10 degrees, somewhere in that range that you want your top arm to be, and then you want to keep it at that angle through the whole stroke. And basically your hand ends up just doing little circles, right? It's up here when you catch, comes down to here when you're fully loading your stroke, and exits and comes back up here again. So it's just doing these circles. But it doesn't bend at the elbow like this. Okay, so when you're doing the drill, put yourself into the same positions that you would put yourself in on your board. There's no point in putting the blade in the wrong place, having a really, strange top arm, top arm bend at the elbow. Try to be in exactly the same positions that you would be when you're on the board. And the last thing I'll just say is that if you have the opportunity to see what you're doing, to do this in front of a mirror, to have somebody video you, it's really helpful to even set up a camera or something and video yourself. You will see when you go forward, a lot of people will go forward and they'll fall on their paddle and they'll fall on it like this. Okay, now the reason that's a problem is because your top hand is really inside the board. Now people who do that, they often, during the stroke, they will actually kind of loop over their paddle as they start to pull through the water. So they'll enter like this, and then as they start to pull, they'll come over top of the paddle. So they, in the middle of their stroke or towards the end of the stroke, it looks like they're fully on top of their paddle. The problem is that they weren't on top of their paddle at the beginning of the stroke, when you have positive blade angle, when you have the most body weight falling on the blade all of a sudden, and so they lost an opportunity here to have an even better stroke. So if you can video it, check to see that you are outside of your rail, not just with your paddle and your paddling side, your paddle blade and your paddling side hand, but your top hand as well. Okay, we call that being squared up, that you're squared up as you enter the water. Okay, so your top hand is over top of your bottom hand as you enter the water. And you can get into that position by just squeezing your paddling side obliques a bit, sticking your hips out to the opposite side just a little bit. Okay, so as you're doing the drill, okay, so I'm in my leg bend, I get my ankle flexion, knees over my toes, push my hips forward, get into that unstable position, start my reach, and I squared up. Okay, so I made sure that I'm squared up. Okay, that really helps. It means that the forces are all directed down. Okay, so when your blade enters the water at an angle like this, some of the forces are directed down. They're lifting up the board. Some of the forces are directed back. They're moving the board forward. If you're entering the water with your blade angle like this, as seen from in front, your forces aren't directed down and back as much. They're directed out to the side. And so you're not lifting the board as much, you're not moving the board forward as much, and you're creating a much greater turning effect that you will have to account for with your steering. Okay, and I will show you some drills to do to help your board tracking. In other words, steering straight without changing sides in future videos. But the biggest thing that you can do, just looking ahead, is not enter the water like that, but enter squared up. Okay, so I'll just do the drill one more time. Okay, so basically we're standing like we would be on our board. We get into our bent leg stance. We put our ski boots on so we get more ankle flexion, our knees go over our toes. We keep our hips pressed forward so we're not sitting back in a chair as we go forward. Okay, we get into this slightly unstable position, but I'm still balanced right now because I'm keeping my upper body really upright. But now I start to rotate forward, and as I do, I start to fall forward. The blade catches my body weight. Okay, that is the first drill, land drill, that I wanted to show you. So here's the invitation. I invite all of you to get somebody to take a picture of you doing this drill, getting into this right here. Okay, and I will comment on what I see if you post that I see appropriate for the video that you send me. But I'm happy to look at videos. I'm bored like you guys are during this pandemic. You can only watch so much Netflix, so please give me something to do. Take some video of you doing the drills. I'd be thrilled to see that, and or video or still pictures. I'd be thrilled to see them, and I will comment on them. I'll take a day and do a bunch of comments. Which I know you don't want to miss. So I'm back on Tuesday. So between now and Tuesday, when I do the next drill, I've got nothing to do except give you feedback on the pictures or videos that you send me. All right? Thank you for watching. Stay safe, and I'll see you on Tuesday. I just got to figure out how to turn this baby off. Finish.